I'm Andrew Blauvelt, a design director and curator of architecture and design at the Walker Art Center, which is a contemporary arts museum in Minneapolis. It's a fairly unique museum in the country. We often don't think of ourselves as a museum, but we do have a permanent collection. But it's because we have different disciplines of artistic practice. So there's a performing arts program, which is one of the largest in the country, which shows modern music, dance, and theater. A film and video program, which is one of the largest also in museum-based programs in the country. Of course, the exhibitions program, the visual arts program, but also education, new media, and design make up the other components of our programs here. So it's rare that you have one museum with all of those areas in the depth that they are. I wanted to come to the Walker because of its reputation in design that it's had for a number of years, and for the possibility of both practicing design and then also doing scholarship on design through curating and organizing exhibitions and lecture programs and those kinds of projects. So the structure of the Walker, it's fairly small for a museum this size, which means I can work really closely with other departments. So I work closely with new media initiatives, technology initiatives, and the education department. And then the program I had come from that I helped create was a design program that looked at design in 3 different ways. One way was as a cultural artifact. Another way was as a technological environment. And the third way was through what are called cognitive sciences, through how people learn and study. And so somehow all of those 3 elements came together here in a real particular way, in a real concrete way. So it wasn't theoretical anymore, it was actual. So that was the biggest draw. The Walker's history with design goes back more than 60 years now. It was one of the first museums to be interested in modern and contemporary design. The closest comparison would be the Museum of Modern Art in New York. There was a lot of similar programs happening in the 1940s when it started. The Good Design program that MoMA had, for example, there was an offshoot of that here locally, and many of the curators participated as jurors for the Merchandise Mart in Chicago during that time. So, and the first public director of the Walker was an architect. So he brought this philosophy about design in that was that since design was in the culture at large, that it would be a natural bridge for people to understand the more avant-garde strains of modernism, say in painting. So you might understand surrealism when you looked at a shop display more easily, maybe because it's part of your world, but then when you went to look at a surrealist painting, what would you see in that? And so he was trying to make this bridge in a really simple way, but it's something that we think a lot about too, like how design actually lives in the world. And sometimes the museum is like a specimen case, so it's looking at that relationship too. I don't like creating furniture showrooms and galleries. That kind of approach doesn't interest me at all. But it's more or less what kind of dialogue can you have with the public, because that's who sees most of the exhibitions. So it's a little bit different than even a magazine, which goes to a lot of other designers. So it's a different kind of thing at the Walker. Design, when I say design, I mean all design fields. So product design, it could be fashion, it could be graphic design, and architecture. I usually say architecture and design when I introduce myself because some people separate those things, but to me it's all design. Landscape, we've pretty much touched on every area at some point during the last 11 years. We had one project that was like a competition for a dead mall, and so we had a ghost model made, a white plaster model made, and then the video projected down onto it, and it would synchronize and highlight certain areas of the mall as it talked about how it would be redeveloped and changed. And I think that was an instant way for people to understand what that project was about. And they even took it further. They kind of gave the mall a persona. So it was sort of like a Sopranos kind of character where this old dead mall was talking about its life. So there's a lot of, we try to experiment a lot with the approach that we take for it. local angle is something that I was particularly interested in highlighting, because I think Minneapolis is one of those design cities, at least we've been told that we are, and the popular press for a while was fixating on all the new architecture, like this particular building by Herzog and de Meuron, or Jean Nouvel's new Guthrie Theater, but they kind of missed it. I mean, it's visible, so those things make sense to talk about, but they didn't talk about the local architecture community or the local graphic design community, which are quite large. We have a different set of researchers in town, and so, you know, there's the Richard Florida argument about creative capital and creative cities. We actually have researchers at the University of Minnesota who do this more rigorously and statistically, and they have gone through the census data, and, you know, there's about 40 to 50% more architects and graphic designers in this city than the average city. So there's a lot of evidence that shows that there is a kind of ecology, a network of designers here, and they seem to be more open to other practices than maybe in some bigger cities where everyone is sort of not ghettoized but concentrated and only interested in their one subject. So that's one of my goals, is to try to bring the different design communities together to talk about design in general.